Clinton, click the Connexus icon at DeWittDailyNews.com.
Your friend in Central Illinois. WHOW.
It's the WHOW Morning Show. I'm your host today, Ben Hubbard. The WHOW Morning Show streams to Facebook and YouTube, brought to you by Peterson Insurance, your Pekin Insurance agent in Clinton. My guest in studio in this segment is Reagen Tibbs. He's a commercial ag educator with the University of Illinois Extension in Logan, Menard, and Sangamon counties. Reagen, thanks for joining us this morning. How you doing, sir?
Good, Ben. Good to see you in the office. Here in the studio. I don't know where Seth is. I have to get him in here for next time. I have to make sure you get a day off since you're having to cover for him.
I know. For once in a while, can't I just get a day off?
Exactly. I have to get on Seth about that one.
Well, I appreciate you joining us on the morning show here today, Reagen. And it's that time of year. Anytime we got the extension in, we got to talk about these deadlines coming up with the 4-H fair season.
Yeah, absolutely. Fair season is right around the corner. It's hard to believe it's June next week. It seems like May went by in such a flash, but that means, like you said, it's right our time for our 4-H fair season. So our first 4-H fair for our unit, Logan, Menard, and Sangamon, is at the end of the month with our Sangamon and Menard General Show and our Sangamon County Livestock Show. So it's important that our 4-H families that want to exhibit at any of our 4-H shows this summer get their entries in. Our entry deadline for our unit this year is June 1. So if you're going to show at any of our county 4-H shows, you have to have your entries into us by June the 1st. All of our entries are online through the fair entry website. If you're signed up to get our newsletter, you can find the instructions on that. Plus, we also have instructions and information on our website as well.
And, just highlight, why is it important, for the community to come out to these shows and support the kids, and what can they see if they do want to go?
Well, absolutely. I mean, the opportunities we give these young individuals, they're going to be the next future leaders within our communities. And these really are true developmental events where they're learning human interaction. They're learning how to talk about something they're very passionate about, that they put a lot of time and energy into. So seeing members of the community come out and to support these 4-Hers really means a lot to these young individuals, to see that the community cares about the investment and the time they've put into these events. And, when you go to any of our 4-H shows, you're going to see a lot of different things. You'll see our general project areas. So that's our cooking, our sewing, floriculture, any visual arts projects that our young people put together, to see the time it took to craft these items and to really work and show off and harness those skills. Or you can go over to our live animal events and see the cattle, the hogs, sheep, goats, dairy cattle, whatever it may be, and to see that time and energy invested into raising those animals and then taking them to our county fair and potentially the state fair as well. It's just another way, again, to support our local 4-Hers and to see the hard work that they've put in over the summer.
Definitely. And as somebody who has gotten to go to a lot of those for the first time over the last couple of years, they are really, really eye-opening, and also the students are just so impressive and so sharp.
Absolutely. I mean, you can ask, I think, any 4-H about their project, and they could talk to you for probably an hour about them, because they really put a lot of time and dedication into these, and to see that then come into fruition at our county fairs, and if they make it to the state fair level too, it's really rewarding for those young people, and it's great to see those, to have those opportunities.
Last thing on the 4-H show, if you guys are still looking for volunteers, judges, things like that?
Absolutely. If you're interested in being a volunteer, interested in judging, you can call any of our offices or send us an email. We'd be more than happy to reach out to you, have that connection, and see if we can get you to help out. Our office in Lincoln, our phone number is 217-732-8289. You can find more contact information on our website, extension.illinois.edu/LMS.
Reagen, any other things on the 4-H show and deadlines that we missed before we move on?
Just some other deadlines. If you're going to be exhibiting certain animals, there are some other requirements. For example, with hogs, you have to submit ear notch sheets in, but those are instructions that we have on our website. You can download the ear notch sheet that then you can turn into the office. And so just look for our newsletter, which is available on our website. If you have questions, call our office and we'll be happy to help you.
And of course, fingers crossed, this is not new information to anyone.
This shouldn't be. No, obviously, if you're someone who generally has some questions and who, you really need some help, we're more than happy to help you through that process if you reach out to us. But for a lot of our families who are returning, a lot of these processes are very similar. Just the dates kind of change around a little bit when our fairs are.
Definitely. Well, Reagen, it's time for us to get into what we usually do when we've got you into this in the studio, and that is the nitty gritty with the numbers. And we're talking about crop budgets. Let's just start with a general. What's going on here?
Yeah, absolutely. So our Farm Doc team over our campus, which is a group of our farm economists who do a fantastic job They put out crop budgets every year. Usually they'll put out the first crop budget in the summer. So for example, for 2026, their first crop budget was posted last August, so August of 25. Then they usually have a revision that comes out in the wintertime. So for this year, in January 2026, they posted an update. They just posted an update back earlier this month on May 19th for kind of the current conditions here in 2026. And a lot of it had to do with obviously the increases in overhead costs that we've seen with fuel, fertilizers, and many other areas of our inputs, excuse me. And then also we're expecting higher market prices for corn and soybeans. They've been on a wild ride recently. I mean, a couple weeks ago, I saw soybeans were up 30 cents in one day. Then the next day they were down 20. So they've been on a really fluctuating, a really wild ride lately. And so what our farm doc team has tried to capture is what we could see towards the end of the growing season. What are those market prices going to look like? And their analysis shows that we are expecting a little bit higher returns despite those increases in our input prices. So hopefully that continues to hold and that we can still have as successful years as we possibly can be given the challenges we're seeing.
Yeah, definitely. Speak to, what kind of variables are leading to that fluctuation in those prices?
That's how long do you have, Ben? But no, there's a lot of things going into it. I know when we had that day where commodity prices soared through the roof, that was the day when the trade announcement with China came out. And so hearing that the Chinese government was going to purchase a certain number of soybeans and other agricultural products, that gave the market a lot of confidence. It gave it a huge boost. Obviously, the current situation in Iran and the Strait of Hormuz is playing a factor in it as well. I know the other night we just heard there's possibly a 60-day extension of the ceasefire, which could be huge news, and see if that holds. We can continue having negotiations on that, and that'll play into fuel prices. That'll play into fertilizer prices. The USDA is announcing rules to try and produce more domestic fertilizer here in the United States, so we don't have to rely on that foreign sources of fertilizer. So all of these things come into effect, but also then the weather too. Are we seeing any places where there are torrential floods, or we're seeing extreme droughts, particularly in our major commodity producing areas? How are trade negotiations, our relations with our neighbors, Canada and Mexico? They're our largest trading partners. And so how are we interacting with them? Those are all things that go into these commodity price fluctuations, and they fluctuate on an hourly basis, if not a minute by minute basis. So it's really hard to kind of pinpoint an exact, say, this is what it is at this moment, this is where it's going to be in the future, but we try to do it the best we can.
So bring this down to the individual farmer. How does, Farmer John use this budget to help his own operation?
Yeah, these are definitely designed to kind of give an idea and a projection of where things could be. Obviously, each farm situation is different. And our farm doc team tries to do a very good job of trying to make it a little more regionalized as possible. So when they publish these crop budgets, they produce one for Northern Illinois, then they produce one for Southern Illinois, and then in Central Illinois, they do one for lower productivity ground and higher productivity ground. So obviously, again, it's hard to encapsulate everything that's going to happen because producers can utilize different marketing strategies to ensure that they get higher prices or get a little more price stability for some of their commodities. And let's say their fertilizer bill isn't as high because they use manure that they get from a local farmer down the street or something. Those types of things are harder to encapsulate in a budget that you're trying to do for an entire region, an entire state, but at least gives you an idea of what could you expect moving forward. How much could we be looking at? And particularly, I think the returns part of it, when you factor in your cash rents and those other overhead costs, how does that impact your return on a per acre basis? And what could your cost breakdown? What could your break even price be?
Gotcha.
That's what it really helps out. Just give a sense that, because if you're trying to look at all the numbers purely, it can be a bit difficult to have those budgets as like a guideline, particularly when you're planning for the year ahead. Those can really be a valuable tool.
So are there any other, specific resources that combo well with this budget, that people can kind of work together with to, benefit their operation?
Absolutely. They could reach out to their local extension office, of course, and contact their local ag educator to try to walk through those things. Within our extension offices, we also have farm record books, which help keep track of some of those expenses, how much fertilizer you're using, as a way just, again, lay out those numbers in an easier way to read that we can work with. If you have a lender or a banker or a farm manager you work with, so that way everybody's on the same page as to what you're utilizing. But also our Farm Doc team puts out a lot of great resources, not just in the Farm Doc Daily section, which is daily articles they put out about current topics in agriculture, but then on the standard Farm Doc website, they have several tools that are available to help plan out different things. So tool to help project machinery costs, a tool that if you put in current fertilizer prices, kind of what your best economic return is on those. So definitely having those resources available and having those connections with extension staff and other folks that you trust with your farm operation definitely go a long way.
So how does this most recent budget compare to other ones in recent years or months?
Yeah, so I think again the expectation is for those higher returns. I think what the big question mark was going into this year when the Farm Doc team does a tour of the state in the early winter, where they kind of first unveil these budgets and kind of talk about their expectations. I think the biggest question mark was going to be trade policy and how would that affect things. How are we going to see market access fluctuate? I don't think anybody in the room back in December up in Peoria projected that we were going to have a war in the Strait of Hormuz and then how that affect fertilizer price. I think we all expected there to be some disruptions, obviously, with the current conflict in Ukraine still going on and other just general trade disputes. But to have that conflict not only affect fertilizer prices, but also fuel prices the way they have, I don't think anybody really expected that. So I think with these budgets, again, they're just a moment in time, right? Trying to encapsulate what's going on. So it's, but again, they still provide a very interesting perspective on where we've been at, especially when we look at the original projections from last August and then moving forward to this year to see those changes.
Gotcha. Reagen, what did I miss on crop budgets in this conversation?
Yeah, I think, again, if you have questions about it or aren't totally sure how to interpret the numbers, because it can be confusing sometimes, totally understandable, reach out to us at your local extension office. We're more than happy to help answer those questions and to kind of walk you through some methodology. And if we need to, we can get you in contact with some folks as well to help out.
And again, just highlight where people find that budget.
Yeah, absolutely. They can go, if they search Farm Doc Daily, they'll find the website and they'll have all of the articles that Farm Doc Daily's posted, especially the one about crop budgets. If they have questions more about that, they can reach out to their extension office. Logan County, our number is 217-732-8289.
And that's a great place for us to take a quick break. More to come with Reagen Tibbs, commercial ag educator with the University of Illinois Extension in Logan, Menard, and Sangamon counties on the WHOW Morning Show.
WHOW.
Here's Matt Hart, owner of the Hart Media Group in Clinton, talking about continuing to serve the community through new ownership.
Things came together and we reached an agreement to purchase. And as you mentioned, we closed August the 1st. So that's August the 1st. Miller Media Group is now Hart Media Group. And we're continuing to serve the people of Clinton and DeWitt County and Monticello and Bloomington and Decatur and everywhere, because we'll just keep connecting people as we've been doing.
The Hart Media Group looks forward to continuing to serve the community for years to come.
Spring just has a way of putting a little more energy into everything. Brighter days, warmer air, and more reasons to get out and enjoy it. Your home should keep up with that. At Hickory Point Garden Homes, you'll have your own one-story duplex with bright open spaces, a private patio, and neighborhood walking paths just outside your door for that perfect stroll in the spring sunshine. You can spend less time managing your home and more time enjoying the warm spring days ahead. See what that feels like at Hickory Point Garden Homes in Forsyth, Illinois, and step into comfortable living for $55 and better.
Big Iron Auctions presents the Stephen and Georgia Sefton online-only auction, closing June 11th. Bid on quality equipment, including a combine, tractors, truck tractor, grain trailer, and other farm equipment. Get a first-hand look during equipment inspection Thursday, June 4th, from 9 till 2 at 8569 Sefton Road in Dalton City. Contact Blake at 217-617-8409, Aaron at 217-898-2985, or visit BigIron.com. Big Iron Auctions, lien-free listings, local support, national reach.
Paul Scourin here, CEO of Warner Hospital. Spring allergies acting up? At Warner Hospital and Health Services, we offer fast treatment to help you breathe easier and feel better fast. Quality care right here, right now. Click on our icon on DeWittDailyNews.com.
DeWittDailyNews.com is the area's leading local news source 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Get the latest local news, obituaries, police blotter, weather forecast, and more with no paywall. Head to DeWittDailyNews.com to get the local information you need to know.
Your friend in Central Illinois, WHOW.
It's the WHOW Morning Show. I'm your host today, Ben Hubbard. The WHOW Morning Show streams to Facebook and YouTube, brought to you by Peterson Insurance, your Pekin Insurance agent in Clinton. We continue with my guest in studio today, Reagen Tibbs, a commercial ag educator with the U of I Extension in Logan, Menard, and Sangamon counties. And I feel like last time we had you in, Reagen, we heard that things were just rolling as far as progress when it comes to planting. Maybe a little bit of a slowdown, but good weather recently.
Absolutely. We've had amazing weather. Definitely, especially with our Memorial Day weekend, we had some great weather. So I think a lot of producers were getting in the field. And so the latest USDA crop reports, normally those come out on Mondays, but because this past Monday was Memorial Day and people like you were out on the lake enjoying yourselves, the USDA pushed the latest report to this past Tuesday. So looking at kind of the state level data for Illinois, corn planted, we were at 86% of our acres in Illinois were planted. Soybeans were at 84%. When we compare those to our 5-year averages for corn, our 5-year average is 84%. So we're just right about that average mark for where we are this time of year. And for soybeans, our 5-year average is 75%. So actually a little bit ahead of that average still. And then when we look at the emerged, so of those planted acres, how many of them have actually emerged? For corn, we were at 68%, and at soybeans, we're at 61%. And looking back at the 5-year averages, our corn 5-year average is 67%. So again, we're right there at that average for corn planting. And soybeans, right now, our 5-year average is 52%. So we're still well ahead of our averages. And I think that comes down to, again, we had some really good rainfall in late April and early May, which those crops that got in the ground early got them a really good start, got some moderate temperatures in the early part of the month. So again, those are kind of the ideal conditions we would like to see when getting that crop started. I think now what we're transitioning to last week, especially, we've had really warm temperatures, which is a good thing. We like to have warm temperatures moving into summer. So we expect that to happen. But when you combine those warmer temperatures with not a lot of rainfall, I think that's when we might start seeing a little bit of stress on these crops. And so we're just kind of monitoring and hoping we get just a little bit of rainfall in the next coming days. And hopefully we can get that crop off to, keep it off to a really good start.
What are some of the challenges other than weather, that producers are facing this time of year as they're getting crops in the ground?
Yeah, I think obviously weather is the biggest one, that can affect our timing a lot.
Yeah.
Most producers, from what I've heard, not a lot of challenges in the way of getting in the ground other than weather. I think a lot of them already gotten their seed already figured out last year, or got their fertilizers figured out. Cause I think that was one big question mark, was how would the current conflict in Iran, the Strait of Hormuz, affect fertilizer availability? Again, most of our producers, book out their fertilizer, book out their seed in the year advance. So generally they have that on the schedule. I think what might impact producers now is if they need to get those kind of spot applications of fertilizers, things that, okay, we might see the crop needs a little bit extra help, especially coming into June and July. If they need to order that fertilizer on the spot, essentially, that might impact prices a little bit. That might affect availability a little bit. So I think when it comes to planting, we haven't seen a whole lot in terms of the way of challenges, but we still could see some coming into the growing year, especially when it comes to drought conditions. We're still we're still in the central part of the state. We're still not really within a drought scenario. Obviously there's some areas that are dry, but when you look at the drought monitor, which updates every Thursday, the northern part of the state is starting to enter into a little bit of a drought, and the southern part of the state is in a drought. We're still pretty good here in the central part, but I think if we don't see any rainfall over the next coming days, we might see those drought conditions start to creep in a little bit more. Not as severe as we've seen the last year, thankfully, but definitely something might be a little bit concerned about moving forward.
So forgive me, as question comes from a non-farmer.
Sure.
But at what point in the season are farmers maybe starting to see some pest pressures, some disease pressures, and things like that?
We could see that starting now.
Yeah.
A lot. We can see some diseases, some of our insects especially will come in early, especially when we have a lot of rainfall at the beginning of the year that might see conditions really percolate. Black cutworm was something we usually look at. We get corn in the ground early and it's wet and it's really kind of just sticky overall. That's a really ideal condition for black cutworm. I haven't seen any reports of it yet. Not saying that it isn't out there, but I haven't seen as much of it this year as we were concerned about it last year. But again, diseases is one of those huge things as well. They really thrive on those humid, sticky days where you walk outside and your shirt just like sticks to you or really feels nasty out. Those could be really some prime conditions for our diseases. So we may not see them quite fully, come to fruition yet. But as we get into the growing season, as we get hotter and more humid during the day, that's when we could see those disease pressures really continue to ramp up.
Gotcha. So it sounds like for now, with hopefully a little bit of rain, we'll be all green lights.
Yeah, I think right now we're still in a really good position. Driving over here this morning, crops look really, really solid. Starting to see some first cuttings of hay, which is really encouraging to see.
Yeah.
When we're getting to that part of the year, so definitely we're in a good spot. Get a little bit of rain over the next few days, I think we'll be definitely continue to be in a good spot.
Nice. Well, Reagen, I've got about 3 minutes to go here with you. Let's talk about what is in the news as far as ag policy right now.
Yeah, I think one of the big things that isn't getting as much discussion because of the current situation in Iran and the Strait of Hormuz is the USMCA review process. So the USMCA, the U.S. Canada-Mexico agreement, actually, no, U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement, excuse me, get my acronym right there. That was the replacement for NAFTA, which was the North American Free Trade Agreement, first started in 1994. And then in 2020 is when the USMCA took over. Basically, it's just a free trade agreement between Canada, ourselves, and Mexico to allow for the free flow of goods and services across our borders with little to no tariffs on most things.
Yeah.
The original agreement authorized it for 16 years, so until 2036. What it said was at the 6th anniversary of it, so July 1st, 2026, there has to be a decision about what the future of it is going to be. Where are we going to go at for the next 10 years? That obviously is coming up this summer. And so there's currently a joint review process that's going to go on this summer. And it could really impact the future of the agreement and also just a free trade in general in North America. We know the current administration has taken a very different view to trade than other administrations, even to the first Trump administration. And I think with this agreement, it's really going to test the diplomatic relationship between our three countries. There are several different possible outcomes, some more likely than others. The most likely ones, according to the big analysts in Washington who get paid to think about these types of things, some of the most likely outcomes are just an annual review process. So let's say come July 1, they have some changes they want to make. They haven't fully agreed to it yet. They'll review it on an annual basis until they reach an agreement. Or Canada and Mexico might be forced to make some concessions to the United States in order to keep the agreement going, because there are net benefits to both Canada and Mexico, even to the United States, from this agreement. And so I think if those benefits are really at present in mind, it might be a situation where Canada and Mexico, if they want to continue the relationship and continue the agreement, they might end up making some concessions to the United States. There are some other less likely scenarios. The agreement doesn't get extended and the country decides to leave, which I don't think will happen. I think that just politically is not a wise decision.
Sure.
There are other possibilities as well of a clean extension where no one wants to make any changes, so we continue it for another 16 years after that. I don't foresee that being an outcome, just because I think there are too many differences in policy and differences in trade views between the three governments. And so I think it'll be interesting to see how that plays out and how that'll affect producers here in our area.
Just in these last 30 seconds here, is that something that gets considered when, this crop budget we were talking about before is made?
Certainly, because that'll absolutely impact availability of fertilizers that come through Canada, or that'll impact corn going down to Mexico to feed cattle and to feed livestock. So absolutely it can affect our crop budgets and affect kind of those decisions moving forward for our producers.
Interesting stuff. Reagen, where do people go to keep up with the University of Illinois Extension?
Yeah, they can go to our website, extension.illinois.edu/LMS, where they can find all of our resources and our great tools that we put out, and reach out to us if they need help.
Thanks again, Reagen, for taking time for us today. That is Reagen Tibbs, a commercial ag educator with the University of Illinois Extension in Logan, Menard, and Sangamon counties on the WHOW Morning Show.
WHOW.
With SRN News, I'm Rich Thomason in Washington.